Mr. Birmingham, back to you, just so you don't feel left out. Mr. McClintock suggested and asked in his bill that a species in a hatchery be treated the same and perhaps counted if you're looking for an endangered species. Let's assume that there were 1 million hatchery fish of a certain type and 2 left in the stream that were truly wild. Wild in the sense that in every respect they were identical to those million in the hatchery, but the fact is that they're in the stream and the river, not in the hatchery. So they are endangered, as I understand the discussion of the endangered species. Is that correct? Those 2 are endangered.
Yes.
And the fact that there's another 1 million of them in reality does not matter. Is that correct? Or not?
Generally, yes. And I want to say generally because in some species, propagated fish, as an example, are counted toward the population. That is a change that resulted because of a judicial decision in Oregon on a listing of coho. But I think if there are 2 naturally spawning fish and a million hatchery fish, that's not going to result in the delisting of the species. The species is probably still endangered or threatened for many, many reasons. The question becomes, are we going to just cut off all economic activity because of this listing? And as in the case of the Tellico Dam, Congress decided, no, we're not going to just shut off all economic activity.
Right, I understand that, but what's odd is we would call this the Endangered Species Act when in point of fact it should be called the Endangered Habitat Act, or the fact that we don't have the fish in the place that we want them, even though there are 1,000,002 fish under my hypothetical.
Yes, and if those 1,000,000 fish can contribute to the natural propagation or the propagation of this species, I shouldn't say natural, but the propagation of these species, then ultimately it may affect it. I mean, this is a.
So forgive me, Mr. Birmingham. I'm going to have to shift over to Mr. Wood in the last 2.5 minutes that I have left. Mr. Wood, you were talking about you had a second idea, then you ran out of time, and I would like you to expand upon it. It had to do with critical habitat, and will it help recover the species? You see the link? So tell me about your second concept.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said by some of the other witnesses that a lot of species are listed, most are habitat limited, meaning they're not going to recover unless we restore or create new habitat for them. And the problem with critical habitat designation in that case is that they do nothing to bring that around. Often they will not trigger any additional regulatory protection or consultation, but they will lower the value of land and alienate landowners. And in that way, it can create perverse incentives to destroy the potential to create habitat in those areas. That's what's so disappointing about the proposal, is it provokes conflict that you would have thought after Weyerhaeuser we were moving beyond, and distracts from the focus of what are the other tools that are needed if we're going to restore habitat at the scale that we need. If we're going to save species like the dusky gopher frog, there are 135 frogs left in 6 sites in Mississippi. It would only take one catastrophic event in that area to potentially wipe out that species. Like, if we're going to recover species like this, we've got to create more populations, we've got to restore additional habitat, but that takes positive incentives.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank all of you for being here today. Truly appreciate it.